Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance and watched the stars. She had done this many times before, but tonight felt different. Tonight the stars seemed to watch her back. The Defiance was humanity's greatest warship. It was 2 kilometers long and carried enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Elena had commanded it for 15 years. She knew every corridor, every system, every crew member by name. The ship was her home. The crew was her family. "Admiral," said Commander Chen, her second in command, "we are receiving a transmission. It is coming from outside the solar system." Elena turned away from the window. "From the colony on Proxima?" "No, Admiral. This is different. The signal is using frequencies we have never seen before, and it is powerful. Very powerful." Elena felt a cold feeling in her stomach. Humanity had been exploring space for 300 years. They had built colonies on 12 worlds. They had found ruins of ancient civilizations on distant moons. But they had never found anyone else alive out there. The universe had seemed empty, silent, until now. "Put it on the main screen," Elena ordered. The screen flickered. Static filled it for a moment. Then the static cleared, and Elena saw something that made her heart stop. It was a face. But it was not a human face. The creature had gray skin that looked like metal. Its eyes were large and completely black. It had no nose, just 2 small holes in the center of its face. When it spoke, its mouth moved in strange ways, but the words came through in perfect English. "Species designation, human. Star system designation, Sol. This message is sent by the authority of the Valorian Galactic Empire. I am High Arbiter Zilthan. I speak for the Emperor himself." Elena stared at the screen. Around her, the bridge crew had stopped moving. No one made a sound. "Your species has been observed," the creature continued. "Your expansion has been noted. Your technology has been assessed. The Valorian Galactic Empire now claims dominion over your worlds, your resources, and your population." The creature paused. Its black eyes seemed to look directly at Elena, though she knew that was impossible. "You have 30 rotations of your planet to comply with the following demands. First, you will dismantle all military vessels. Second, you will surrender all weapons technology. Third, you will prepare your population for integration into the Empire as a servant species." Elena's hands curled into fists at her sides. "If you comply, your species will be allowed to continue existing under Imperial protection. If you do not comply, your species will be eliminated. This is not a negotiation. This is not a threat. This is simply the way things are. The strong rule. The weak serve. This has been true for 4,000 years of Imperial history. It will be true for 4,000 more." The creature's mouth twisted into something that might have been a smile. "We have conquered over 4,000 star systems. We have integrated 612 species. Those who resisted were destroyed. Their worlds are now empty. Their names are forgotten. Do not make the same mistake. You have 30 rotations. Use them wisely." The screen went black. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Commander Chen broke the silence. "Admiral, what do we do?" Elena did not answer immediately. She was thinking. The message had been clear. Surrender or die. Simple, clean, and absolutely terrifying. "Get me a connection to Earth Command," she said finally. "Priority Alpha. And wake up every captain in the fleet. We have work to do." The next 24 hours were chaos. The transmission had been received by every ship in humanity's fleet, every colony, every station. Panic was spreading. Some people demanded immediate surrender. Others called for war. Most simply did not know what to do. Elena traveled to Earth on a fast shuttle. She arrived at the United Earth Council building in Geneva just as the emergency session was beginning. The council chamber was full. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, scientists, diplomats. Everyone who mattered was there. Secretary General Park stood at the podium. He was an old man with tired eyes. Elena had known him for 20 years. She had never seen him look so afraid. "We have confirmed that the transmission is genuine," Park said. "Our scientists have analyzed the signal. It came from a point approximately 50 light-years from Earth. The technology used to send it is far beyond anything we possess." A murmur went through the room. "We have also detected a massive fleet approaching our solar system. Current estimates suggest over 50,000 vessels. They will arrive in approximately 28 days. Now the murmur became shouts. People were standing, arguing, some were crying. Elena remained in her seat, silent, watching. General Morrison from the United Military Command spoke next. "Our entire fleet numbers just under 2,000 ships. Even if every single one of our vessels was at full combat readiness, we would be outnumbered more than 25 to 1. And their technology appears to be significantly more advanced than ours. A military victory is not possible." "Then we must surrender," said Ambassador Reyes from the Diplomatic Corps. "We must negotiate. Perhaps we can secure better terms. Perhaps integration does not mean slavery. Perhaps—" "They called us a servant species," someone shouted. "That sounds like slavery to me." "At least slavery means survival," Reyes shot back. "What good is pride if we are all dead?" The argument continued for hours. Elena listened to every word. She heard the fear beneath the anger. She understood it. Humanity had never faced anything like this. For 300 years, they had believed they were alone in the universe. Now they discovered they were not alone, and the universe wanted to enslave them. Finally, she stood. The room fell silent. Everyone knew who she was. Admiral Elena Vasquez, hero of the Mars Rebellion, commander of the First Fleet, the most respected military leader in human history. "I have something to say," Elena announced. "But first I need to tell you a story." She walked to the center of the room. 50 years ago, before I was born, a survey ship discovered something on a moon orbiting a gas giant in the Tau Ceti system. They found ruins, ancient ruins, the remains of a civilization that had died millions of years ago. Some people nodded. They knew this story. The discovery of the architect ruins had changed humanity's understanding of the universe. "The ruins were studied for decades," Elena continued. "Most of what we found was too damaged to understand. But we did recover some things. Records, technologies, and something else. Something that was classified at the highest level. Something that only 12 people in this room know about." She paused. The room was completely silent. "We found a message, a warning, left behind by the species we call the architects. It spoke of a great empire that would rise in this region of the galaxy. An empire that would conquer and enslave, an empire that was coming." Elena looked around the room. The architects knew about the Valorians. They knew they were coming, and they left us a way to fight back. Secretary General Park stood. "Admiral, what are you saying?" "I am saying that we have a choice," Elena replied. "We can surrender. We can become slaves. We can give up everything that makes us human and hope that our masters will be kind. Or we can fight. We can take the chance that the architects left us. We can stand up and tell this empire that humanity will not bow." General Morrison shook his head. "Admiral, I respect you more than anyone in this room. But what you are suggesting is suicide. They have 50,000 ships. We have 2,000. The mathematics are simple." "The mathematics are simple if all we have is what we have built ourselves," Elena agreed. "But we have more. The architects left us more." She pulled a small device from her pocket. It was a data crystal, glowing with a soft blue light. "This contains the location of an architect facility. A hidden base that has been waiting for us to find it. It contains technology that could change everything. Ships, weapons, knowledge, all of it waiting for a species desperate enough to use it." "Why have we not used it before?" someone asked. Because the facility is deep in space, far from any colony, far from any supply line. Getting there would require sending our entire fleet into the unknown. If it is a trap, if it is a lie, we would lose everything. That is why the previous councils chose to wait, to study, to be careful. Elena looked at the screen on the wall, where the image of High Arbiter Zilthan still lingered. We do not have time to be careful anymore. We have 30 days. The architects left us a gift. It is time to accept it. The council debated for another 3 hours. Some called Elena's plan madness. Others called it hope. In the end, there was only one question that mattered. What else could they do? At midnight, the vote was held. By a margin of 7 votes, the council authorized Admiral Vasquez to take the fleet to the Architect facility. If she found what she was looking for, humanity would fight. If she did not, they would surrender. Elena left the council chamber and walked outside into the cool night air. Geneva was quiet. Most people had not yet heard the news. They were sleeping peacefully, dreaming ordinary dreams, not knowing that their world was about to change forever. Commander Chen was waiting for her. "Admiral? What happened?" "We are going to war," Elena said softly. "Or we are going to die. Possibly both." She looked up at the stars. "Tell the fleet to prepare for departure. We leave in 48 hours. Where are we going?" Elena smiled. It was a tired smile, but there was something fierce in it, something that refused to accept defeat. "We are going to find out if the universe still believes in miracles." 2 days later, the entire human fleet gathered at the edge of the solar system. 1,847 ships, carriers, destroyers, cruisers, frigates, every combat vessel humanity possessed. Elena stood on the bridge of the Defiance and addressed them all. "You know why we are here?" she said. Her voice was carried to every ship, every crew member, every soul in the fleet. "You know what is coming. The Valorian Empire has given us a choice, kneel or die. They believe those are the only options. They are wrong." She paused. "Humanity has never been good at kneeling. We are stubborn. We are proud. We fight when we should surrender. We hope when we should despair. Some call that foolishness. I call it our greatest strength." On every ship, crew members listened. Some were afraid. Some were angry. All of them were waiting. "We are going to a place that no human has ever been," Elena continued. "We are going to find weapons that we do not yet understand, technology that we cannot yet imagine. It will be dangerous. It will be difficult. Some of us will not survive, but if we succeed, we will return with the power to tell the Valorian Empire something that no species has ever told them before." Her voice grew harder. "We will tell them no. We will tell them that Earth is not theirs to take. We will tell them that humanity is not theirs to enslave, and if they do not listen, we will make them understand." She took a deep breath. "This is not a battle we asked for. This is not a war we wanted. But it is ours now, and we will fight it together. All of us, every ship, every crew, every soul. We are humanity, and humanity does not surrender." Commander Chen looked at her with pride in his eyes. "Admiral, the fleet reports ready." Elena nodded. "Then let us go find our miracle." The fleet engaged their engines and disappeared into the darkness between stars. Behind them, Earth hung in the void, blue and green and beautiful, a world that did not yet know its fate. Far away, aboard the throne of eternity, High Arbiter Zilthan reviewed his intelligence reports. His scouts had detected the human fleet's departure. They had noted its direction. "Interesting," he murmured. "They are running into deep space. Perhaps they think they can hide." His aide, a young officer named Crix, looked nervous. "Should we pursue, High Arbiter?" "No. Let them run. Let them hide. When we arrive at their homeworld, They will have no fleet to defend it. Their people will surrender without a fight, and when their brave admiral finally returns, she will find nothing but ashes." Zilthan smiled his terrible smile. "Humans, so predictable, so weak. This will be easier than I thought." He did not know about the architect facility. He did not know about the message his species had tried to bury for 10,000 years. He did not know that humanity had already found the key to his empire's greatest secret. But he would learn. Very soon he would learn. And by then it would be far too late. High Arbiter Zilthan sat in his private chamber aboard the throne of eternity. The room was dark, lit only by the soft glow of floating crystals that drifted near the ceiling. He was reading the human response to his ultimatum. It was only one sentence. "We remember the architects. Do you?" Zilthan read the words again. Then again. His hands began to shake, not from anger, from fear. The architects. That name had been forbidden in the Empire for 10,000 years. It was erased from history books. It was deleted from computer records. Any citizen who spoke it was executed. The architects did not exist. They had never existed. That was the official truth. But Zilthan knew the real truth. All High Arbiters knew. It was passed down in secret from one leader to the next, a burden of knowledge that could never be shared. The architects had been the creators of the Valorian species. Millions of years ago, the Valorians had been simple animals. They lived on a harsh world, fighting for survival, barely intelligent enough to use tools. Then the architects came. They were an ancient race, older than most stars. They traveled the galaxy, searching for species with potential. When they found the Valorians, they decided to help. The architects gave the Valorians intelligence. They gave them technology. They taught them science, art, philosophy. They lifted the Valorians from the mud and gave them the stars. And in return, the Valorians had destroyed them. It happened slowly. Over thousands of years, the Valorians grew strong. They built their own ships. They developed their own weapons. And they began to resent their creators. The architects were too peaceful, too patient, too kind. They refused to use their power to conquer. They refused to take what they could easily take. To the Valorians, this was weakness. So the Valorians decided to prove their strength. The war lasted 300 years. The architects had better technology, but they were few in number and refused to fight at full power. They kept hoping that their children would stop. They kept believing that peace was possible, that kindness would win in the end. They were wrong. The last architect ship was destroyed above the Valorian homeworld. The last architect was killed trying to send a message of forgiveness. And the Valorians stood in the ashes of their creators and declared themselves the masters of the galaxy. That was 10,000 years ago. Since then, the Valorians had conquered everything they touched. They enslaved species after species. They built an empire that stretched across 4,000 star systems. And they told themselves that they were right, that power was everything, that the weak deserved to be ruled by the strong. But deep in their hearts they were afraid that someone would discover the truth, afraid that the architects had left something behind, afraid that one day their sins would catch up to them. And now, a species of talking apes from a small planet called Earth had sent them this message. We remember the architects. Do you? Zilthan crushed the datapad in his hand. Get me the Emperor, he ordered. Now. Far across the galaxy, the human fleet traveled through empty space. They had been flying for 3 days. 3 days of nothing but darkness and stars. The crew was getting nervous. Admiral Elena Vasquez understood their fear. She felt it herself. They were heading into the complete unknown, chasing a hope that might be nothing more than an ancient lie. If the architects had truly left something for humanity, would it still work after millions of years? Would they even be able to understand it? But she could not show doubt. Not now. Not when everything depended on her. Commander Chen approached her on the bridge. Admiral, we will arrive at the coordinates in approximately 6 hours. The crew is anxious. I know, Elena said. I am anxious too. Do you believe we will find something? Elena looked out the window at the endless stars. I have to believe. If I do not, then I have led 2,000 ships and 200,000 people to their deaths for nothing. Chen nodded slowly. The data crystal you showed the council. What exactly did it contain? Records, Elena replied. Fragments of architect history. Most of it was damaged beyond repair, but there were images, star maps, and coordinates pointing to a location in deep space, a place the architects called the Last Hope. The Last Hope? That is what the translation said. The architects knew they were losing their war. They knew their enemies would eventually destroy them, so they prepared. They built hidden facilities across the galaxy. They stored their knowledge, their technology, their ships, and they waited for someone worthy to find them. Chen frowned. Worthy? How would they know if a species was worthy? Elena smiled sadly. I do not know. Perhaps they left tests. Perhaps they trusted fate. Perhaps they simply hoped that any species clever enough to find their gifts would be wise enough to use them well. And if we are not wise enough, then we will fail, and humanity will become just another slave race in the Valorian Empire. 6 hours later, the fleet arrived at the coordinates. At first, there was nothing, just empty space, stars in the distance, no planets, no stations, nothing. Scan everything, Elena ordered. Use every sensor we have. The Defiance's sensors swept the area. Minutes passed. The crew held their breath. Then Lieutenant Park at the sensor station gasped. Admiral! I am detecting something. I do not know what it is. Show me. The main screen flickered. An image appeared. It was a ring. A massive ring of metal floating in space, larger than anything humanity had ever built. It was at least 50 kilometers across, covered in symbols and patterns that glowed with faint blue light. What is that? Chen whispered. The Architect Gate, Elena replied. Her voice was full of wonder. It is real. It is actually real. She ordered the fleet to approach slowly. As they got closer, the ring began to respond. The symbols grew brighter. The patterns began to move, shifting and changing like living things. We are being scanned, Lieutenant Park reported. The ring is analyzing us, our ships, our technology, our biology, everything. Elena stood perfectly still. This was the moment. Either the architects had deemed humanity worthy or they had not. Either this was salvation or it was a dead end. The ring stopped glowing. For a terrible moment, nothing happened. Then a voice spoke. It came through every speaker on every ship in the fleet. It spoke in a language that no human understood, but somehow they understood it anyway. The words appeared in their minds like memories they had always possessed. Children of Earth, you have found us. You have come seeking help. We have watched your species for a long time. We have seen your wars and your peace. We have seen your cruelty and your kindness. We have seen you struggle and fail and rise again. The voice paused. You are not perfect. No species is. But you have something that our betrayers lost long ago. You have hope. You have the ability to see enemies and choose to make them friends. You have the strength to fight and the wisdom to know when fighting is not the answer. Elena felt tears forming in her eyes. We are the architects. We are gone now, destroyed by those we loved and trusted. But we prepared for this day. We knew that our murderers would spread across the galaxy. We knew they would enslave and destroy. And we hoped that one day, a species would rise to stop them. You are that species. You are our last hope. The ring began to glow again. This time the light was blinding. Enter the gate, children of Earth, accept our gift, but remember this: power without wisdom is destruction, strength without mercy is tyranny. Do not become what you fight. Do not let revenge consume you. Be better than our first children were. Be what we always hoped they could be. The center of the ring opened. Through it, Elena could see something impossible. Another place, another space, and in that space, ships. Thousands of ships, architect ships, waiting in silent rows, ready to be awakened. "My God," Commander Chen breathed. "There are so many." Elena wiped her eyes. "Signal the fleet. All ships are to follow the Defiance through the gate. Whatever is on the other side, we face it together." One by one, humanity's ships entered the ring. They passed through the strange light and emerged in a vast chamber of metal and crystal. It was like being inside a hollow moon. The walls were covered with machines and structures that no human could identify. And everywhere, there were ships, architect vessels, dark and dormant, waiting for commands that had not come in millions of years. Elena looked at them with awe. "How do we activate them?" The answer came immediately. New information flooded into her mind, into every human mind in the fleet. Instructions, knowledge, understanding. The architects had prepared for this moment. They had made it as easy as possible for their chosen successors. "The ships will respond to human commands," Elena announced, her voice filled with wonder. "They recognize us. They accept us." On the throne of eternity, High Arbiter Zilthan received the report from his scouts. The human fleet had disappeared into deep space. They could not be tracked. They had vanished completely. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "No species has ever evaded our sensors." His aide Crix was trembling. "High Arbiter, there is something else. Our long-range scanners detected an energy signature before the humans disappeared. It matched signatures in our oldest archives. The Forbidden Archives." Zilthan went very still. "What kind of signature?" "Architect technology, High Arbiter. The humans have found architect technology." The chamber was silent. Zilthan's aides watched him, waiting for his reaction. They expected anger. They expected violence. Instead, Zilthan laughed. It was a cold, terrible sound. "So the ghosts of the past have finally returned. How appropriate. The architects always loved their dramatic gestures." He stood and walked to the window, looking out at his massive fleet. "It does not matter. The architects are dead. Their technology is ancient. Whatever the humans have found, it will not be enough to stop us. We destroyed the architects when they were at full strength. We will destroy their inheritors just as easily." "Should we increase our speed, High Arbiter?" Crix asked. "Yes. Maximum acceleration. I want to reach the human homeworld before their fleet can return. Let them find whatever scraps the architects left behind. By the time they come back, there will be nothing left to defend." He turned back to face his officers. "And send a message to the Emperor. Tell him that the architect situation has been resolved. The humans found some old ruins. They will be dealt with. There is nothing to fear." Crix hesitated. "High Arbiter, are you certain? If the humans truly have architect weapons—" "I am certain," Zilthan interrupted. "The architects were weak. That is why they died. Whatever they left behind will be just as weak. The humans are desperate, and desperate species make foolish choices. They will come running back with their ancient relics, hoping for a miracle." His black eyes gleamed with cold confidence. "And we will show them that miracles do not exist. Only power, only strength, only the Empire." But even as he spoke, a small part of Zilthan wondered. The architects had been many things, but they had never been stupid. If they had prepared for this day, if they had left something for humanity to find— No. He pushed the thought away. The architects were gone. Their time was over. The Valorians had won. They had won. In the architect chamber, Admiral Vasquez stood on the bridge of a ship that was not the Defiance. It was an architect vessel, twice the size of humanity's largest carrier, and it was responding to her commands as if it had been built for her. "The fleet integration is complete," Commander Chen reported. "All human ships have been connected to the architect network. We can control them all from here." Elena nodded slowly. The knowledge the architects had given them was still settling in her mind. It was overwhelming. Thousands of years of science, history, philosophy. She could feel it changing her, expanding her understanding of the universe. But there was one piece of knowledge that stood out above all the rest. One terrible truth that the architects had wanted humanity to know. "The Valorians," she said quietly. "They were the architects' children. The architects created them." Chen looked shocked. "What?" "The architects uplifted the Valorians from primitive animals. They gave them everything. Intelligence, technology, a place in the galaxy. And the Valorians thanked them by committing genocide." Elena's hands clenched into fists. "The Valorians built their empire on a lie. They told their people that they rose to power on their own. They erased the architects from history. They pretended that their creators never existed." "That is monstrous," Chen whispered. "Yes, it is. But it is also their weakness." Elena turned to face her crew. "The architects did not want us to simply destroy the Valorians. They wanted us to expose the truth, to show the galaxy what really happened, to give the Valorian people a chance to choose a different path." "And if they do not choose differently?" Elena's expression hardened. "Then we will defend ourselves. We will protect our people. And we will make sure that the architect's sacrifice was not in vain." She looked out at the architect fleet, thousands of ships humming with ancient power. "Set a course for Sol. It is time to go home." The gate opened once more, and humanity's new fleet began its journey back to Earth. They were no longer running. They were coming to deliver a message. The Valorian Armada arrived at the edge of the Sol system like a wave of darkness rolling across the ocean. 50,000 warships. Each one was larger than anything humanity had ever built. Each one carried enough weapons to burn a planet to ash. High Arbiter Zilthan stood on the bridge of the Throne of Eternity and smiled. The human homeworld was directly ahead, a tiny blue dot in the vastness of space. It looked so fragile, so vulnerable, so easy to break. "Report," he ordered. Admiral Crix stepped forward. "Scans show minimal defenses around the human homeworld, a few orbital stations, some automated weapons platforms, nothing that can threaten our fleet. And their military ships? Still missing, High Arbiter. They have not returned from wherever they went." Zilthan's smile grew wider. "Perfect. The fools left their planet undefended while chasing ghosts. By the time they return, their world will be in flames and their people will be in chains." He walked to the center of the bridge and activated the fleet-wide communication system. His face appeared on every screen, in every ship, across the entire Armada. "Soldiers of the Empire. Today we add another system to our glorious domain. Today we remind the galaxy why the Valorian name is feared across 1,000 worlds. The humans thought they could hide from us. They thought they could escape their fate. They were wrong." His black eyes gleamed with cruel pleasure. "Advance on the third planet. Destroy their defenses. Prepare for ground integration. And remember, we want workers, not corpses. Kill only as many as necessary to break their will. The rest will serve the Empire for the next 10,000 years." The Armada began to move. 50,000 engines ignited. 50,000 ships accelerated toward Earth. From the planet's surface, it must have looked like the stars themselves were coming to swallow them. On Earth, people watched the sky and prayed. The news had spread quickly. The alien fleet was coming. There was no escape. The government had ordered evacuations, but there was nowhere to go. Underground bunkers filled with crying families. Churches filled with people seeking comfort. Streets filled with those who simply wanted to see the sky one last time. In Geneva, Secretary General Park stood in the empty council chamber. He was alone. Most of the government had already retreated to secure locations. But Park had nowhere he wanted to be. He had sent humanity's fleet away on a desperate mission, and now he would watch the consequences of that decision. His communication device buzzed. He looked at it without hope. Probably another report of panic. Another city falling into chaos. Another million people facing their end. But the message was not about Earth. It was from Admiral Vasquez. "Secretary General, we are coming. Hold on." Park stared at the words. His hands began to shake. He typed a response with trembling fingers. "Admiral, is that really you? We detected your fleet leaving the system days ago. You cannot possibly be back already." The response came immediately. "We found what we were looking for, and we brought friends. Tell our people to look toward Jupiter. Help is on the way." Park ran to the window. Jupiter was not visible from Earth with the naked eye, but he knew it was there, hanging in the darkness, the largest planet in their system. "What did you find?" he typed. "The answer to everything," came the reply. Near Jupiter, something was happening. Space itself seemed to bend and twist. Light curved in impossible ways. And then, with a flash that could be seen from Earth, a ring appeared. The Architect Gate, transported from its hidden location to the heart of the Sol system. Through the ring came ships, not just the 2,000 vessels of the human fleet, but thousands more, Architect ships, ancient, massive, terrifying. They poured through the gate like water through a dam, spreading out in formation around the gas giant. On the throne of eternity, alarms began to scream. "High Arbiter!" Admiral Crix shouted. "Massive energy signature near the 5th planet. Ships are appearing from nowhere. Thousands of them." Zilthan spun around to face the main screen. What he saw made his blood run cold. The Architect fleet hung in space like a wall of metal and light. Each ship was covered in the familiar patterns and symbols that haunted Valorian nightmares. Each ship hummed with power that the Empire had not seen in 10,000 years. "No," Zilthan whispered. "That is impossible. The Architects are dead. We killed them all." "High Arbiter, the ships are broadcasting a signal. It is being received by our entire fleet. Block it! We cannot! It is overriding our systems." The main screen flickered. The image of the Architect fleet was replaced by a face, a human face. Admiral Elena Vasquez looked out at the Valorian armada with calm, steady eyes. "High Arbiter Zilthan," she said. "We need to talk." Zilthan stared at her in silence. His mind was racing. This should not be happening. The Architects were extinct. Their technology should have decayed long ago. How had these primitive humans awakened ships that had been dormant for millions of years? "You look surprised," Vasquez continued. "Did you think we would simply roll over and die? Did you think we would surrender without a fight?" "You are bluffing," Zilthan snarled. "Those ships are empty husks. You cannot possibly control Architect technology. No species has been able to activate their systems since they were destroyed." "You are wrong about that," Vasquez replied. "The Architects prepared for this day. They left instructions, they left keys, and they left a message for the species that would one day face their murderers." Zilthan felt a cold hand grip his heart. "You asked if we remember the Architects," Vasquez said. "We do, and now we know the truth. We know what you did to them. We know how you repaid their kindness with genocide. We know that your entire empire is built on the bones of your creators." The bridge crew was staring at the screen with confusion and fear. Most of them had never heard of the Architects. The name meant nothing to them. "You are speaking lies," Zilthan said, but his voice was not as strong as before. "There were no Architects." The Valorian Empire rose to power on its own strength. Really? Then let me show you something. The screen changed again. Images began to appear, records from the Architect archives, videos of the young Valorian species, primitive and savage, living in caves on a harsh world. Then images of Architect ships arriving, Architect scientists working with the first Valorians, teaching them, helping them, loving them. And then images of war, Valorian ships attacking Architect stations, Architect cities burning, Architect people dying, their faces full of confusion and sorrow, unable to understand why their children had turned against them. The final image was the worst. A single Architect, ancient and dying, speaking into a recording device. To whoever finds this message, I am the last of my kind. We made a terrible mistake. We created a species and gave them everything. We loved them. We trusted them. And they destroyed us. The Architect paused, tears streaming down its strange, beautiful face. But we do not blame them. We blame ourselves. We should have been better teachers. We should have shown them that there is more to existence than power. Perhaps the next children we find will learn what the Valorians could not. Perhaps they will remember us with kindness. The recording ended. Across the Valorian fleet, soldiers and officers stared at their screens in stunned silence. Everything they had been taught, everything they believed about their history, was a lie. They were not conquerors who had risen on their own strength. They were murderers who had killed the only beings that ever truly cared for them. That was 10,000 years ago, Vasquez said quietly. Your leaders have kept this secret ever since. They erased the Architects from your history because they were ashamed, because they knew that if you learned the truth, everything would change. She looked directly at Zilthon. Well, now you know, all of you know, and you have a choice to make. Zilthan felt his control slipping away. His crew was looking at him with new eyes, eyes full of doubt, eyes full of accusation. This changes nothing, he declared loudly. Ancient history does not matter. What matters is power. What matters is the present. And in the present, we are still the Valorian Empire. We are still the masters of the galaxy. Are you? Vasquez asked. Look at your fleet, High Arbiter. Look at those Architect ships. Do you really want to test your power against theirs? Zilthon turned to face the main tactical display. The numbers were not encouraging. The Architect ships were larger, more advanced, and appeared to possess weapons that the Empire had no defense against. If a battle began, the outcome was far from certain. But he could not retreat. He could not show weakness. The Empire did not retreat. You may have their ships, he said slowly. But can you use them? Can your primitive species truly control technology that is millions of years old? Or are you simply hoping that their presence will frighten us into surrender? Vasquez smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Would you like a demonstration? One of the Architect ships moved forward. It was massive, at least 10 kilometers long, shaped like a curved blade of pure silver. Energy began to gather at its forward section, forming into a sphere of brilliant white light. The sphere launched. It crossed the distance between the fleets in an instant, too fast for any scanner to track. It struck the empty space between the armadas and detonated. The explosion was silent in the vacuum of space, but its effects were devastating. A wave of energy spread outward, disrupting sensors, overwhelming shields, causing smaller Valorian ships to tumble out of control. And that was just the shock wave from a miss. That was a warning shot, Vasquez said calmly. The next one will not miss. Zilthon gripped the railing of his command platform. His knuckles were white. You would not dare. You claim to be peaceful. You claim to be better than us. But you would murder 50,000 ships? You would kill millions of soldiers who were just following orders? I do not want to kill anyone, Vasquez replied. That is why I am giving you this chance. Withdraw your fleet. Return to your space. Leave humanity alone, and take the truth with you. Share it with your people. Let them decide what kind of empire they want to be. And if we refuse? Vasquez's expression hardened. Then we will defend ourselves. We will protect our home, and we will make sure that the architect's legacy survives even if yours does not. The communication ended. The screen went dark. Zilthan stood in silence. Around him, his officers waited for orders. They had seen the architect weapons. They had heard the truth about their history. They did not know what to believe anymore. "High Arbiter," Admiral Crix ventured cautiously. "What are your orders?" Zilthan thought about everything he had worked for. He thought about the empire he had served his entire life. He thought about the secrets he had kept, the lies he had told, the millions of lives he had crushed under his heel in the name of power. He thought about the architects, dying with words of forgiveness on their lips, and he thought about the humans, standing before him with ancient weapons and impossible courage, offering him a choice he had never expected to face. Surrender or fight, truth or lies, the old way or something new. "We attack," he said finally. "All ships, battle formation, target the architect vessels, destroy them all." Admiral Crix hesitated. "High Arbiter, our crews have seen the recordings. Many of them are disturbed." "Morale is—" "I do not care about morale," Zilthan shouted. "I care about victory. We are the Valorian Empire. We do not surrender. We do not retreat. We conquer." He pointed at the screen. "Those ships are relics. Those humans are primitives playing with toys they do not understand. We have numbers. We have experience. We have the strength that built this empire from nothing." His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "And anyone who disagrees can join the humans in death. Now give the order. Attack." The Valorian armada began to move. 50,000 ships against the combined forces of humanity and the awakened architect fleet. Weapons charged, shields activated, soldiers prepared to fight and die, and at the edge of the Sol system, Admiral Elena Vasquez watched them come. "They chose war," Commander Chen said quietly. "I hoped they would choose peace." "So did I," Elena replied. "So did the architects, 10,000 years ago." She straightened her uniform and looked out at the approaching enemy. "But hope does not mean we are unprepared. If the Valorians want a battle, we will give them one they will never forget." She turned to her crew. "All hands, battle stations, protect the gate, protect Earth, and remember why we are fighting." The crew saluted and rushed to their positions. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin. The first shots of the battle split the darkness of space with lines of fire and light. Valorian weapons blazed across the void, striking architect shields in explosions of rainbow color. The ancient ships absorbed the attacks without flinching and returned fire with weapons that made the enemy vessels seem like toys. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of her architect command ship, the vessel she had named Hope. Around her, holographic displays showed the entire battlefield in perfect detail. She could see every ship, every weapon, every movement. The architect technology was responding to her thoughts, translating her commands into action faster than any human system could manage. "Enemy formation is spreading," Commander Chen reported. "They are trying to surround us." "Let them try," Elena replied. "Focus fire on their command ships. Take out their leadership and their coordination will fail." The architect fleet moved as one. Thousands of years of dormancy had not dulled their systems. They flowed through space like a school of silver fish, each ship knowing exactly where it needed to be. Their weapons were precise and devastating. With each volley, Valorian ships became clouds of debris. But the Empire was not helpless. They had numbers, they had experience, and they had desperation. High Arbiter Zilthan watched his ships die from the bridge of the throne of eternity. Each loss was a knife in his heart. But he could not stop. He could not retreat. The Empire never retreated. "Concentrate fire on the ring structure," he ordered. "That is how they brought the Architect ships here. Destroy it, and they cannot receive reinforcements." "Yes, High Arbiter." A portion of the Valorian fleet broke away from the main battle. 3,000 ships raced toward the Architect gate, their weapons charging for a devastating strike. Elena saw them coming. "Protect the gate! All human vessels intercept!" The human fleet responded instantly. The Defiance led the charge, followed by every human warship that could be spared from the main battle. They positioned themselves between the Valorian attack force and the gate, a wall of metal and courage. "Admiral," Captain Rodriguez of the carrier Valiant called over the communication system. "We are outnumbered 3-1. Our shields cannot hold against that kind of firepower." "I know," Elena replied. Her voice was calm but filled with pain. "But if they destroy the gate, we lose our connection to the Architect facility. We lose everything." There was a long pause. Then Rodriguez spoke again. "Understood, Admiral. It has been an honor." The human fleet opened fire. Their weapons were weaker than the Valorians. Their shields were thinner. Their ships were slower, but they fought with a fury that surprised even their enemies. The Defiance took the center position, drawing the heaviest fire. Commander Chen was at the helm, his hands dancing across the control panels as he dodged and weaved through the incoming attacks. "Hull breach on Deck 7, someone shouted. "Hull breach on Deck 12. We have fires in engineering." "Keep firing," Chen ordered. "Keep them away from the gate." The Valiant exploded, then the cruiser Perseverance, then the destroyer Swift. One by one, human ships died, their crews sacrificing themselves to protect the ancient ring that held humanity's only hope. On Earth, people watched the battle through telescopes and satellites. They saw the flashes of light in the distant darkness. They knew that each flash meant someone was dying. Millions of people held their breath and prayed for a miracle. In the main battle, the Architect ships were winning. Their technology was simply too advanced. Valorian weapons could barely scratch their shields, while Architect beams cut through Imperial armor like paper. But the Valorians kept coming, throwing ship after ship into the fight, accepting terrible losses in exchange for any damage they could inflict. "They are insane," Elena muttered. "They would rather die than admit defeat." "That is how they conquered the galaxy," Chen replied over the communication link. His voice was strained. The Defiance was barely holding together. "They never stop. They never give up. They just keep coming until you break." "Then we will not break," Elena said firmly. "Hold the line. I am sending Architect reinforcements." She directed a wing of 20 Architect ships toward the gate. They moved with terrible speed, crossing the battlefield in moments. Their arrival turned the tide. Valorian ships that had been pressing their advantage suddenly found themselves under attack from weapons they could not match. But the damage was done. Half the human fleet was gone. The Defiance was crippled, its engines failing, its weapons nearly depleted. The gate was intact, but the cost had been staggering. On the throne of eternity, Zilthan watched his gate assault fail. He had lost 3,000 ships in exchange for nothing. The ring still stood. The human fleet, though battered, still fought. And the Architect vessels continued their relentless advance. "High Arbiter," Admiral Crick said quietly, "we have lost 15,000 ships. Our fleet is at 60% strength. If we continue at this rate—" "I know the numbers," Zilthan snapped. "I do not need you to tell me what I can see." He stared at the tactical display with hatred in his eyes. This should have been easy. A primitive species. A handful of ancient relics. How were they winning? "All ships, new orders," he announced. "Ignore the enemy fleet. Target the human homeworld directly. If we cannot destroy their ships, we will destroy what they are fighting for." The Valorian armada changed direction. Instead of engaging the Architect fleet, they began racing toward Earth, their weapons powered up to maximum. Their targeting systems locked onto the blue planet hanging in the distance. Elena saw what was happening and felt her blood freeze. No, they would not. They are going to burn Earth, Chen confirmed. 35,000 ships, all heading for the planet. We cannot intercept them all. Elena looked at the tactical display. The numbers were impossible. Even with the Architect fleet at full power, they could not stop that many ships before at least some of them reached Earth. And it would only take a few ships to turn the planet into a graveyard. All Architect vessels, maximum pursuit, she ordered. Target engines first. We have to slow them down. The chase began. Architect ships raced after the Valorian armada, their weapons blazing. They destroyed ship after ship, but the Empire kept going. They did not try to fight back. They simply ran toward Earth as fast as their engines could carry them. On the ground, people saw the approaching lights and knew what they meant. Panic spread through every city on every continent. Parents held their children. Lovers held each other. Old enemies embraced and forgave. If these were their last moments, they wanted to spend them without hatred. Then something unexpected happened. The Architect ships began to transmit. Not weapons fire, not tactical commands, information, massive streams of data flooding into every human system. Computers on Earth, on the remaining human ships, on the gate itself. All of them suddenly filled with knowledge they had never possessed. Elena felt it enter her mind. The Architects had been transmitting to the humans throughout the battle, but this was different. This was everything. Science. History, art, philosophy, medicine, engineering. Millions of years of accumulated wisdom, compressed and delivered in a single burst. Admiral? Chen's voice was full of wonder. Are you seeing this? Yes, Elena breathed. The Architects. They are giving us everything. And then she heard the voice. The same voice that had welcomed them at the gate. The voice of the last Architect, recorded 10,000 years ago, but somehow still alive in the data stream. Children of Earth, we have given you our weapons and our ships, but these are not our true gift. Our true gift is knowledge, understanding, the wisdom we gathered across 1,000,000 years of existence. The stream continued to flow. Elena saw images of distant worlds. She learned the secrets of stars and the mysteries of black holes. She understood diseases that humanity had not yet named and cures that would save billions of lives. She grasped philosophies that made Earth's greatest thinkers seem like children taking their first steps. We made a mistake with our first children, the voice continued. We gave them power without context, strength without wisdom. They never understood why we believed in peace. They never felt the joy of creation or the sorrow of destruction. They only understood taking, only understood winning. The voice paused. Do not make our mistake. Use our weapons to defend yourself, but use our knowledge to build something better. Create a galaxy where strength serves wisdom, where power is used to heal, not to harm, where victory means lifting others up, not pushing them down. Elena felt tears streaming down her face. She was not alone. Across the human fleet, across Earth itself, people were crying as the Architect wisdom filled their minds and hearts. We are gone, the voice said softly, but we will live on in you. Remember us, remember our mistakes, and be better than we were, be better than our first children could ever be. The transmission ended. The data stopped flowing, but its effects remained. Elena looked at the tactical display with new eyes. The Valorian fleet was still racing toward Earth. The situation was still desperate. But she saw something now that she had not seen before. Patterns, possibilities, solutions hidden in the chaos. Chen, she said suddenly, the Valorian formation, do you see the weakness? There was a pause. Then Chen's voice came back, filled with the same new understanding. The center ships. They are pulling power from their rear shields to boost their engines. If we hit them from behind while they are running, their shields will fail, and the ships behind them will collide with the debris. Elena looked at the Architect fleet. They were too slow to catch the Valorians, but there was another option. All Architect vessels, prepare to use emergency acceleration. 80% power to engines, 20% to weapons. We are going to do something the Valorians have never seen before. Commander Chen sounded worried. Admiral, emergency acceleration at that level could damage the ships. The Architects never intended— The Architects gave us these ships so we could save our home, Elena interrupted. They would understand. She took a deep breath. All ships, execute. The Architect fleet surged forward. Their engines screamed with power that should have been impossible. They closed the distance with the Valorians in seconds, appearing behind the enemy formation like ghosts. And then they opened fire. The rear of the Valorian fleet dissolved. Ships with weakened shields exploded. Ships behind them crashed into the debris and exploded too. The chain reaction spread through the formation, turning a wall of warships into a cloud of fire and metal. Zilthan watched in horror as his fleet came apart. 15,000 ships in the center of his formation were simply gone, destroyed in a single devastating attack. "How?" he whispered. "How could they know?" He did not understand. He could not understand. The Architects had given humanity something the Valorians never had. Not just weapons, not just technology, but the ability to think in ways that the Empire had never imagined. The remaining Valorian ships scattered. Some continued toward Earth, but they were few now, and the Architect fleet cut them down one by one. Others tried to flee back toward the edge of the solar system. Some simply stopped, their crews too shocked to continue. The battle was not over, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. Humanity was going to survive. On the Defiance, Commander Chen sat in his captain's chair and watched the enemy retreat. His ship was dying around him. Fires burned in a dozen compartments. Half his crew was dead or wounded. But they had held the line. They had protected the gate. They had won. "Admiral," he said weakly, "I think we did it." Elena's voice came back filled with emotion. "You did more than that, old friend. You saved everything." Chen smiled and closed his eyes. He could rest now. He had earned it. Around Jupiter, the Architect gate hummed with satisfied energy. Its purpose was fulfilled. The species it had waited for had proven themselves worthy. The galaxy would never be the same. And on Earth, billions of people looked up at the sky and saw for the first time in days that the lights were no longer coming closer. They were pulling back. The enemy was retreating. Against all odds, against all logic, against everything that should have been possible, humanity had won. But the battle was not the end. It was only the beginning. High Arbiter Zilthan stood alone on the bridge of the Throne of Eternity. His officers had moved to the edges of the room, keeping their distance, watching him with eyes that held more fear than respect. The battle was lost. Everyone knew it. The only question that remained was what would happen next. Half his fleet was gone. 25,000 ships destroyed in a single day. It was the worst defeat in the history of the Valorian Empire. Worse than the ancient wars. Worse than any rebellion. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Empire had been beaten. And they had been beaten by a species they had dismissed as primitive. A species they had planned to enslave. A species that had somehow awakened the ghosts of the Architects and turned their own ancient sins against them. The main screen flickered. Admiral Elena Vasquez appeared once more. Her face was tired, covered in dust and dried blood from a wound on her forehead. Her ship had been damaged during the battle, but her eyes were still strong, still determined. Still burning with a fire that Zilthan could not understand. "High Arbiter," she said, "it is over. Your fleet is broken. Your attack has failed. We have won." Zilthan said nothing. There was nothing to say. "I could destroy you now," Vasquez continued. The architect ships have enough power to wipe out what remains of your armada. You would not be able to stop us. You would die here, in the darkness between stars, far from your home." She paused. Her expression shifted. The hardness in her eyes softened into something else. Something that looked almost like compassion. "But that is not what I want." Zilthan finally spoke. His voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. "What do you want, human? Revenge? Surrender? The pleasure of watching your enemies beg for mercy?" "I want you to listen," Vasquez replied. "Really listen. Not as a conqueror facing defeat, not as an enemy calculating his next move, but as a living being who has the chance to make a different choice." She leaned forward slightly. "Your empire is built on a lie. You know this now. Your people know this now. The recordings I transmitted during the battle have spread to every ship in your fleet. They have probably already reached your homeworld. The truth about the architects cannot be hidden anymore." Zilthan felt a cold weight in his stomach. She was right. The secret that his predecessors had protected for 10,000 years was exposed. Everything the Empire believed about itself was crumbling. "You can try to suppress it," Vasquez said. "You can punish those who speak the truth. You can burn the records and execute the witnesses. Maybe you will succeed. Maybe your people will choose to believe the old lies instead of the new truth. Empires have survived worse scandals. But I do not think that will work. Not this time. Your soldiers saw the architect recordings with their own eyes. They felt the weight of what their ancestors did. They know that the beings who gave your species everything were murdered by your people. That knowledge will spread. It will grow. It will change things." Zilthan shook his head slowly. "You think you understand us? You do not. The Valorian people are loyal. They will not abandon the Empire because of some ancient history. They will not care about species that died before their grandparents were born." "Perhaps," Vasquez admitted. "Or perhaps they will care very much. Perhaps some of them have always wondered why the Empire is so afraid of questions. Why certain topics are forbidden. Why anyone who speaks of peace is treated as a traitor. Perhaps the truth will give them the answer they have been seeking." She straightened in her chair. "But I am not here to predict the future. I am here to offer you a choice." "What choice?" "You can withdraw your fleet, return to your space. Tell your emperor what happened here. Tell your people the truth about the architects, and let them decide what kind of civilization they want to be." Zilthan laughed bitterly. "And in return? What do you demand? Tribute? Territory? Hostages?" "Nothing," Vasquez said simply. "We demand nothing." For a moment, Zilthan thought he had misheard. "Nothing? You defeat the greatest military force in the galaxy and you ask for nothing?" "We did not fight this battle for conquest. We did not fight for revenge. We fought to protect our home, our people, our right to exist. That is all we wanted, and now we have it." Vasquez's voice grew softer. "The architects gave us many gifts. Their ships, their weapons, their knowledge. But the most important gift was their wisdom. They taught us that the cycle of violence never ends on its own. Someone has to choose to break it. Someone has to be brave enough to offer mercy instead of vengeance." "We cannot be friends," she continued. "Not after today. There is too much pain between us. Too many dead on both sides. But we do not have to be enemies forever. The galaxy is large enough for both of us. We can go our separate ways. We can heal our wounds. We can build something new." Zilthan stared at her. In his entire life, no one had ever spoken to him this way. In the Empire, defeat meant death. Mercy was weakness. The strong took what they wanted, and the weak accepted what they were given. That was the natural order. That was the only order. But looking at this human woman, with her tired eyes and bloody face, standing in victory and offering peace instead of destruction, Zilthan felt something he had never felt before. Doubt. "Why?" he asked. Why would you do this? We came to enslave your people. We came to burn your world. If our positions were reversed, we would show no mercy. We would destroy you and celebrate our victory for 1,000 years. Why are you different?" Vasquez smiled. It was a sad smile, filled with all the weight of the battle they had just survived. Because that is what makes us human. We have the same capacity for cruelty that you have, the same hunger for power, the same fear of the unknown. We have done terrible things in our history. We have made mistakes that cost millions of lives. We are not saints. We are not perfect. But we also have the capacity to choose, to look at an enemy and see a future ally, to look at a monster and see a victim of circumstances, to look at the worst of the galaxy and still believe that something better is possible. She met his eyes directly. The architects believed in your people once. They saw potential in the Valorians. They thought you could become partners in building a better galaxy. They were wrong. You chose a different path. But that does not mean the choice is gone forever. Every day is a new chance. Every moment is an opportunity to be different from what you were. I am offering you that opportunity now, not because you deserve it, not because I trust you, but because I believe that the only way to end the cycle of violence is for someone to take the first step, and I am choosing to take that step today. Silence filled the bridge of the throne of eternity. Zilthan's officers watched him, waiting to see what he would do. The fate of 2 civilizations hung in the balance. Zilthan thought about his life. He thought about the battles he had fought, the species he had conquered, the worlds he had burned. He had always told himself it was necessary, that the empire required strength, that mercy was weakness. But looking at his shattered fleet, looking at the ancient ships of a species his ancestors had murdered, looking at the face of a woman who had every right to destroy him and had chosen not to, Zilthan wondered if he had been wrong. What if strength was not about destroying your enemies? What if real power was having the ability to destroy and choosing not to? He closed his eyes. For a long moment, he stood in darkness, feeling the weight of 10,000 years of history pressing down on him. Then he opened his eyes and spoke. "All ships," he said quietly. "All ships. This is High Arbiter Zilthan. Stand down. Deactivate weapons. Prepare to withdraw." Admiral Crick stepped forward, his face filled with confusion. "High Arbiter? Are you certain?" "I am certain," Zilthan replied. "We have lost this battle. We will return home. We will tell our people what happened here. We will tell them the truth about the architects. And we will let them decide what happens next." He looked at the screen, where Vasquez was watching him with an expression he could not read. "You have given me a choice, human. I do not know if I am making the right decision. I do not know if my people will thank me or curse me. But I know that continuing this fight will only lead to more death. And I have seen enough death today." Vasquez nodded slowly. "That is all I asked for. A chance. A possibility. The rest is up to you." The Valorian fleet began to move. Damaged ships limped toward the edge of the solar system. Destroyed vessels were left behind as silent monuments to the battle. One by one, the survivors engaged their faster-than-light drives and vanished into the darkness. The last ship to leave was the Throne of Eternity. Before it jumped, Zilthan sent one final message. "Human, Vasquez, you spoke of the architects, of their hope, of their belief in something better. I want you to know that I have carried their message with me for many years. The recording of the last architect, the one who spoke of forgiveness." He paused. "I always thought it was the rambling of a dying fool. Now I am not so sure. Perhaps the architects understood something that my people have forgotten. Perhaps there is more to existence than conquest. I do not promise peace. I cannot speak for the Emperor or for my people, but I can speak for myself. And I will remember this day. I will remember that humanity could have destroyed us and chose mercy instead. That is a lesson worth learning. The throne of eternity disappeared in a flash of light. The Sol system was silent. The battle was over. Humanity had survived. On the bridge of the Hope, Admiral Elena Vasquez finally allowed herself to breathe. The weight of command, the fear, the responsibility, all of it crashed down on her at once. She sat in her chair and let the tears come. Commander Chen's voice crackled over the communication system. His ship was barely functional, but he was alive. "Admiral, are you all right?" "I am fine," Elena managed. "Just processing." "We won. We actually won." "Yes, we did." There was a long pause. Then Chen asked the question that everyone was thinking. "What happens now?" Elena looked out the window at the stars, the same stars she had watched so many times before. But they looked different now, brighter, fuller of possibility. Now we rebuild. We mourn our dead. We heal our wounds. And we figure out how to live in a galaxy that knows we exist. Do you think the Valorians will come back? Maybe. Probably. There are others in the Empire who will not accept this defeat. There are generals and admirals who will want revenge. We need to be ready. She stood and walked to the window. But we also need to remember why we fought. We did not fight to become conquerors. We did not fight to build an empire of our own. We fought for our right to exist, for our freedom, for the future of our children. The architects gave us their knowledge, their wisdom, their hope for something better. We owe it to them to use those gifts wisely, to build a civilization that is worthy of their sacrifice. Elena turned back to face the stars. We have a lot of work to do. 50 years passed. The galaxy changed in ways that no one had predicted. The Valorian Empire did not collapse, but it fractured. Some systems remained loyal to the old ways. Others, inspired by the truth about the architects, sought new paths. Civil wars erupted, revolutions flared. The iron grip of the empire loosened, bit by bit. Humanity grew. They spread to new worlds, using the architect technology to travel further and faster than they ever had before. They made contact with other species, some friendly, some hostile, all fascinating. They built stations and cities. They cured diseases and solved ancient mysteries. They made mistakes and learned from them. The architect gate still orbited Jupiter, maintained and protected by a permanent fleet. No one knew if it would ever be needed again. But humanity kept it ready, just in case. Admiral Elena Vasquez retired after 30 years of service. She moved to a small house on Luna, where she could watch the Earth rise above the horizon every night. She wrote her memoirs. She taught at the military academy. She played with her grandchildren and told them stories about the old days. One evening, her granddaughter asked her a question. "Grandmother, did we win the war?" Elena thought about it for a long time. She thought about the battle, the sacrifice, the message she had sent to Zilthan, the choice she had made. "We did something better than win," she finally said. "We chose not to become monsters. That is the only victory that truly matters." Her granddaughter frowned. "But the Valorians are still out there. There are still wars. There is still fighting." "Yes. There will always be fighting. There will always be those who choose violence over peace. That is the nature of the universe. But there will also always be those who choose differently. Those who see enemies and try to make them friends. Those who have power and use it to help instead of harm." Elena pulled her granddaughter close. The architects believed that one day, a species would rise that could break the cycle of violence. A species that could look at the worst of the galaxy and still hope for something better. They waited millions of years for that species to appear. And when they found us, they gave us everything they had. We cannot waste that gift. We cannot become the Valorians. We cannot build our own empire of fear and slavery. We have to be better. We have to keep trying, even when it is hard, even when it seems hopeless, even when the easy path leads to darkness. She smiled at her granddaughter. That is what it means to be human. Not our science, not our ships, not our weapons, but our stubborn, foolish, wonderful belief that tomorrow can be better than today. That is what the architects saw in us. That is why they chose us. And that is why we can never give up. Outside the window, the earth rose slowly above the lunar horizon. Blue and green and beautiful. A world that had faced destruction and survived. A world that had learned terrible lessons and grown stronger. The stars stretched out beyond it, infinite and unknown. And somewhere in that vastness, humanity's message was still spreading. The message they had sent to the Valorians. The message the architects had left for whoever came after them. The message that had changed everything. We remember. We endure. And we will never stop hoping for something better. The galaxy was vast. The future was uncertain. There would be more battles, more challenges. More moments when everything hung in the balance. But humanity would be ready. They always were.